Good morning. Welcome to Fantasy Sports. Today on SportsGrid, I'm Craig Mish along with George Kurtz on this Saturday morning as we close in on the NFL preseason, Major League Baseball second half underway. We touch on a ton of football here on the show as a lot of drafts are set to begin in the month of August. George, great to be back with you here on another edition of the show as we move on here to the summer and get a lot closer to the NFL. We're going to talk a lot about some of the different players who are out there, some potential sleepers, some unsigned players as well, and some off-season extensions. But look, I know it's early, George, probably for a lot of people drafting in fantasy football, but really some of the preparation does start now.
Oh, it should be starting now, right? We're at July 19th. Most of us are going to draft what? About a month from now, maybe later. I know my home league draft, which I'm the commissioner of, this is what year is this? This is year 37. Year 37 of this league. I try and draft as close to opening night as possible. Would love to get it the Wednesday before. And another home league draft of mine, the draft was just set yesterday for August 24th. So always look forward to my home league drafts.
Let's get to some headlines here on the show. The New York Jets going into the season, certainly may not be one of the best teams in the NFL, but over the last week, they've given out more guaranteed money than anybody else in the league. Signing Garrett Wilson to a 4-year extension. Sauce Gardner also gets one as well. Terry McLaurin has yet to report to Washington. As George mentioned, we still have some time, so not completely worried about that. Definitely some concern with Quinshon Judkins, who was arrested last weekend on the Cleveland Browns and certainly could face not only a suspension, but some jail time if indeed all of the reports end up being accurate. And also Najee Harris, unfortunately, on July 4th, suffered some sort of face or eye injury, George. Probably a good place to start there. Harris, who signed a contract with the Chargers in the offseason, we thought that maybe going into the year could have some nice value playing on a significantly more up-tempo, better offense with the Chargers. I'm a little concerned here, George, not just because they're going to place him on the injured list or the non-football injury list for a while. I'm more concerned with nobody's basically seen Najee Harris. He hasn't come to camp or anything like that. It kind of tells me maybe, I hope it's not, but it feels like this may be worse than they're sort of leading on here, and you just have to hope for his health and safety. And I guess football comes second at this point.
I agree with you. I agree with the whole points of that you made there. He's on the NFI list here, but the fact that we haven't seen him does worry me quite a bit. Not that I was very high on Harris anyway. I don't think he's all that great at back here. He's more than 4 yards in a cloud of dust. Not much upside there, with the exception of that he plays in that offense, and we know that Harbaugh wants to run the ball and run the ball a lot, sort of control the clock there. So, as I said, wasn't high on my draft list anyway, but this does raise Hampton a little bit, all right, in your draft boards. Now, there, for what it's worth, the agent says, "Oh no, he's fine, he's okay." Well, what's he going to say? So you take that with a grain of salt as well. Been a rough week. If you drafted early, which some people do, but if you drafted early, you got Harris, you got Rashee Rice, Jordan Addison, Judkins. I mean, there's going to be could be some suspensions coming down here that could affect some plays that you already have on your roster.
Yeah, we'll get to Judkins in a minute. First, let's get to the Jets here as they give Garrett Wilson a 4-year, $130 million contract. And, George, Wilson 2 years ago looked like he was going to get this kind of contract. But last year, Aaron Rodgers, certainly playing a full season, tended to favor Devontae Adams, especially through the last 6-7 games of the year. And that's not an indictment of Rodgers or Adams, by the way, George. I would tell you that Adams was fantastic down the stretch for the Jets, and Rodgers was much better. But Wilson was a little bit of a forgotten man, and I feel like if you asked me, George, this deal, this 4-year, $130 million contract, I think this is more for next year than it really is for this year, but you have to make a decision to lock it up. I don't anticipate the Jets being great, even if Fields is good. I don't know how good Wilson can actually be in this offense, but I do think that he is a budding star, and hopefully we get the numbers that we saw a couple of years ago.
Yeah, once again, hard to disagree with you. I agree. I think Wilson's a very good player, maybe in the wrong offense here. Now, him and Fields do have a history. I believe they were together at college, so there is that connection there. Can they get it together in the pros? The Jets' offense is a longer talk for me because I think if you want to be successful with Fields, you have to design the offense around what he does. He is not a 3, 5, 7-step pocket passer. You got to move the pocket. You got to get him rolling out right, rolling out left, using his legs. That's what he does. And I think the problem with the when he's with the Bears and to an extent when he was with the Steelers, they didn't do that, or at least didn't do enough of that. You can't do the old square peg round hole, and you're going to be a pocket passer. You're going to throw the football. It's not going to work. So that's what I'm wondering how the Jets are going to do and how that offensive line is going to hold up. It wasn't very good last year. They've tried to their to the Jets' credit, they keep trying to fix the offensive line. They just haven't been able to do it. But this is going to be I think, a work in progress for most of the season with Fields.
Terry McLaurin, wide receiver for the Washington Commanders, is basically dug in. He wants a new contract going into the season. He's been Washington's good soldier, George, through the good and the bad, and feels like it's time for him to get paid. Seems to be some concern that this is going to linger a little bit, maybe into the regular season. This time last year, we were doing this with Jamar Chase. Chase got signed. He was a number one pick in terms of fantasy wide receivers. Is McLaurin, George, you think going to get signed before the season? It feels like Washington's in such a good place, both in reality and fantasy. It seems far-fetched to me that Washington just wouldn't fork over the dough right before the year, even if it does take a month or two.
There's always something, right? Even when everything's running positively, right? There's always something that comes up here, and it's McLaurin. Listen, he probably deserves to get paid. The problem is he's going to be 30 in 2 months, right? Pretty much on week 2 of the NFL season, he'll be 30 years old. That's a little old for a receiver, so that's going to be the issue. They're not going to want to give him, the huge signing bonus and the big contract here. Do I think it gets done? Yeah, I think it gets done before the season. So if I'm drafting today for some reason, I am. Let's just say for giggles, he's a third-round pick in most leagues. I'm still late third, fourth. I'm okay with. All right, I'm not going to let him slide too much. Unlike Harris, who I probably aren't touching. I still wouldn't mind McLaurin, who's a low-end wide receiver 1, right, wide receiver 2 for you. So I think it does get done. I'm not all that worried about it. But, I think there's going to have to be some compromise on both sides. It's one of those ones where McLaurin, you're not going to get the money like a CD Lamb got. That's not going to happen here. But Washington's got to pay more than maybe what they want to be comfortable with as well.
Yeah, McLaurin did release a statement saying, I do want to play here and continue to be part of what's being built. You also want to feel valued by ownership. I think there's a disconnect between the value I bring to the table and how it applies to the market. I would agree. And again, McLaurin in an upswing player on a team that is headed toward good things. You got to get this guy signed. Meanwhile, back to negative street we go, unfortunately. Quinshon Judkins, second-round pick of the Cleveland Browns, George, facing some very serious charges in South Florida of the domestic kind. He also remains unsigned. We'll get to that a little bit later, where a lot of these second-round picks have not signed yet due to guaranteed money. But Judkins went from a player that was going relatively high in some drafts as a possibility with no Nick Chubb there and having a great opportunity to play to a guy that may not even see the field, George. I think that it's very easy to say at this point that there's not a bigger faller in the draft season than him.
Oh, I agree. All right, it's sad, stupid. Fantasy wise, I'm probably not touching him. All right, that's probably about it here. It's not a good sign. It's Cleveland in the first place. They have all sorts of issues. Not really a great quarterback situation going on there. So not like I'm dying to draft Cleveland Browns players anyway. And then you throw this in. Is he going to sign? Remember, the big. I know we're going to talk about this later in the show, but the big question with these second round picks is guaranteed money. All right, that's what they're arguing about over here. We all know what they're going to get paid, but it's how much guaranteed are you going to get here? They're not going to want to guarantee him anything, or very low here. So that's going to be a major issue in getting him in, even at the camp, and what's going on. So sort of a mess here. Listen, if I'm in a dynasty league and he's there late, fine. He's there in the double-digit rounds, fine. But other than that, let him be someone else's problem in your draft.
Yeah, definitely going to be the case. We also had one retirement this week, Mike Williams, who signed with the Chargers after a year with the Jets. Really couldn't get fully healthy and has decided to hang it up. A couple of good fantasy seasons for Mike Williams of the Chargers. We'll be back talking wide receivers next on Fantasy Sports Today.
online casino expansion in the U.S. is extremely slow, a lot slower than I think we all would have thought, 5 years ago as sports betting took off. But you're going to start to see, I think, next year, a few more states kind of trickle into this. On top of Maine, you had Illinois kind of talk about it. Governor J.B. Pritzker pitched it as an idea to help cut down the budget deficit. Of course, we've got a weird tax fallout there.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
Obviously, he didn't do great in the last two majors, and we're going home here. We're going to Northern Ireland, Royal Portage. This is Rory's the reason why we're going here. Got off to a rough start, throwing his tee shot out of bounds back in 2019. I think he'll be ready. Not yet ready to call him the winner. I still have a couple of days before I do that, but it is a home game for him. And as you saw, based on this weekend, he is playing well.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
His run in Salt Lake is over, but obviously the intimidation of a guy that's been around that long in Gundy and in this guy, if you look at their cases, they're very similar. It's been going on forever, right? And it's time for a change, I think, in Stillwater and in Salt Lake. I got to be honest with you. And believe me, if they lose again, they're going to get rid of him.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
No superstar wants to go to Portland there, so you go, oh, well, Dame actually wants to be back here, and this is going to hurt us. It sort of brings back those vibes where Kobe Bryant was in L.A. Great basketball player, horrendous basketball team, but maybe he could sell a couple extra seats and be a star in the building. That's Dame. And also from the perspective of what Dame wants, Dame just doesn't care about championships, and that's okay. Like, he makes a lot of money. He can do that and continue to lose in Portland. Can have it both ways, I guess.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
With the All-Star break this week and just a single game or day of games being played on Friday, George and I diving into some fantasy football discussion as we'll do throughout the month of July and bring in some baseball back the next couple of weeks as we head toward the All-Star break. But George, let's dive into some fantasy football wide receiver discussion. And like most years, this board does seem familiar, maybe with some different names and some different spots, but certainly the amount of players in the first 2 or 3 rounds are going to be heavily baited on wide receivers. So let's go through some of the average draft positions based on some of the early drafts here in 2025. Jamar Chase this time last year, an unsigned player, unclear, turned out to be one of the very best players in fantasy football. In fact, he's going number 1 in a lot of drafts. The guy that was going 1, Justin Jefferson, his ADP is 4. CeeDee Lamb simply hasn't mattered who's at quarterback. He's been a star. His ADP is 6. Puka Nacua, no competition from Cooper Kupp anymore. His ADP is 8. He's now being drafted in the top 10. Malik Neighbors, a fantastic rookie season, also drafted in the top 10. And Amon-Ra St. Brown, never, George, the sexiest name on the board, but it's going to have 100 catches, going to have 1,400, 1,500 yards, and a bunch of touchdowns for the Lions. So, eerily familiar with previous years. I don't see any specific trend that I could throw out with you here and say, hey, look, this looks so different than the past. Wide receivers, generally speaking, you're going to have one every year that's taken either number 1 or number 2. And this year it appears to me Jamar Chase.
Yeah, I think Jamar Chase is just a safe pick. You can make an argument for him being number 1 overall. I don't have an issue with it. I've changed, Greg. All right. It used to be we're always drafting running backs in round 1. All right. Because there's just not enough of them. But they get hurt so much, right? They just get hurt way too much here that I've now switched over the past 3-4 years where I'm taking a wide receiver. They're just a safer pick, especially in any kind of PPR. Whether you're playing half point, full point, whatever it might be, I'm going to take a wide receiver. I'm the first person to tell you I'm a little worried about JJ. All right. I don't know what McCarthy's going to do. Do you? I don't. Just take him number 2 overall. The ADP there is 4. I mean, if that's an average year for him, as McCarthy takes time to get things going, that's a problem here. So I'm a little worried about that. I love Malik Neighbors as well, but that Giant team, I don't know. Russell Wilson, when's Jackson Dart going to play? Those numbers could really come down here as great as he is and certainly will be here. So I worry about him a little bit as well, but he's more in round 2. I said the JJ one, I just have a funny feeling when my turn comes up to pick. If JJ is there and CeeDee Lamb, I'm probably going to lean towards Lamb because I think the Cowboys have to throw the ball all the time. No choice. We know Dak can throw. In the regular season, he's good. It's the playoffs, you have a problem with Dak here. But CeeDee Lamb, Cowboys should be trailing a lot of games. They don't have a running game at all. They may have the worst running back situation in the NFL. Means you got to throw the football. And with Pickens on the other side, no more double coverage for CD.
Let's go to Malik Neighbors here for a minute. We showed his numbers quick. I want to show those again. So he had over 1,200 yards last year and 7 touchdowns, 109 receptions on 170 targets. So that 109 in terms of receptions, that's worthy of where he's being drafted. George, it's interesting that the other numbers, not so much. You don't see this that often with a player that we're basically under the assumption that those 1,200 yards become 1,400, right? And those 7 touchdowns become like 10. Because those numbers right there are not worthy of his ADP that he's being taken. Do you feel like that jump is coming?
I think we could see very similar numbers. Touchdowns are finicky. Maybe he catches 8, 9, 10, maybe he gets 7, maybe he gets 4. They're just finicky. So I don't really worry about the touchdowns. We know he's going to should be the number 1 target in the red zone. All right, there's not much else there with the Giants. I mean, Wan'Dale Robinson or Darius Slayton is your number 2. Theo Johnson's your tight end. So it really should be, as far as the passing game, Malik Neighbors all over the place. So I'm not all that worried about him. I think you put him with a really good quarterback, he would have dynamic numbers. So I think he is that receiver. He's an alpha. I do worry about, okay, it's Russell Wilson. Then what's going to happen once they think if you look at the Giants' schedule, I mean, hey, we got the gambling show here. This is a major under for me. The Giants play pretty much the who's who of the NFL here. Washington, Dallas, Kansas City, Chargers. They do get New Orleans, Philadelphia, Denver, Philadelphia, San Fran, Chicago, Green Bay, Detroit. Good luck to you. Good luck to the Giants here. They're not going to be a very good team this year as far as record is concerned. When is that switch to dart happening, Craig? October 1, Halloween? It's going to happen. All first-round picks play. And the Giants' record is going to be bad, so they're going to have to throw them in there. Mm-hmm. I think that's what brings these numbers down. That's why I think those numbers that we show there are going to be about right. They're going to be about right here. I love the player here. Just don't love the situation this year.
Have the Giants named a starter, or we're going to learn that in the preseason? I guess I'm still baseball mode here. Did they say Winston or Wilson?
I'm assuming it's
Russell Wilson.
Okay. It's not like last year. They're gonna defer to the veteran Russell Wilson, the probable future Hall of Famer. But eventually, it's going to be dark.
Yeah, I'm not embarrassed to ask those questions during baseball season in July. I just can't be. All right, real quick, let's hit Amon-Ra St. Brown. As I mentioned, he's never the sexiest fantasy pick, but we've seen these guys through the years, George. I don't know. It feels like a little Marvin Harrison-ish. It's like Harrison maybe after year 4 or year 5, where these numbers are just simply going to be there, but he's going to roll off very few 70-yard touchdowns if you're playing in bonus points leagues like that. But I got no problem whatsoever having Amon-Ra St. Brown as my number 1. I know he's been nicked up a couple different times, and you get scared he's going to miss a lot of time, but he generally plays.
It's funny. You are right about that. That last little line you said, that he always questionable with this, that, but when he's there and he puts up numbers there. I'll have no problem with St. Brown. In fact, in some ways, I even want St. Brown, Craig, because that means I picked at the end of the first round, right? As far as ADP, there is 10. So a 10-team league, you're on the turn. 12-team league, you're pretty close there. It means I'll get Amon St. Brown and a top running back in the second round, right? Maybe I get Derrick Henry or someone like that, whoever it might be. So I have no problem. St. Brown, in some ways, that's how I want to draft. A very good wide receiver. Yeah, he's not Jamar Chase, but he's really good. And I also get the running back. If I'm drafting Jamar Chase, it also means I'm waiting minimum 19 more picks to the 20th pick, maybe the 24th pick. Now it's a little questionable who my top running back is going to be. So I have no problem with the Sun God. He'll have another big season.
All right. Take a quick timeout on fantasy sports today. Coming up next, we'll take a look at the second tier of wide receivers. And one of them was a top 5 pick in fantasy last year. Has moved to the end of tier 2. You're watching Fantasy Sports today here on SportsGrid. Craig Mish, George Kurtz will be back with more here on our edition of FST this Saturday, right after this. Don't go away.
Online casino expansion in the U.S. is extremely slow, a lot slower than I think we all would have thought, 5 years ago as sports betting took off. But you're going to start to see, I think, next year, a few more states kind of trickle into this. On top of Maine, you had Illinois kind of talk about it. Governor J.B. Pritzker pitched it as an idea to help cut down the budget deficit. Of course, we've got a weird tax fallout there.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
Obviously, he didn't do great in the last two majors, and we're going home here. We're going to Northern Ireland, Royal Portage. This is Rory's the reason why we're going here. Got off to a rough start, throwing his tee shot out of bounds back in 2019. I think he'll be ready. Not yet ready to call him the winner. I still have a couple of days before I do that, but it is a home game for him. And as you saw, based on this weekend, he is playing well.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
His run in Salt Lake is over, but obviously the intimidation of a guy that's been around that long in Gundy and in this guy, if you look at their cases, they're very similar. It's been going on forever, right? And it's time for a change, I think, in Stillwater and in Salt Lake. I got to be honest with you. And believe me, if they lose again, they're going to get rid of him.
Pharrell coast to coast, only on SportsGrid.
No superstar wants to go to Portland there, so you go, oh, well, Dame actually wants to be back here, and this is going to hurt us. It sort of brings back those vibes where Kobe Bryant was in L.A. Great basketball player, horrendous basketball team, but maybe he could sell a couple extra seats and be a star in the building. That's Dame. And also from the perspective of what Dame wants, Dame just doesn't care about championships, and that's okay. Like, he makes a lot of money. He can do that and continue to lose in Portland. Can have it both ways, I guess.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
And welcome back to Fantasy Sports today here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish along with George Kurtz. As I mentioned, Tier 2 of fantasy football in terms of wide receiver is probably the spot where things have been shaken up quite a bit. In fact, you look at the end of Tier 2, George, there's a wide receiver that was not Tier 2 last year. He was pick 2 in fantasy in Tyreek Hill. Wow, what a drop going into this season. But certainly you have a lot of opportunities here, especially within the first four. They're all bunched up, George. It feels like this is when you're drafting and it's just going to go receiver, 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 receiver over and over again. Nico Collins, Brian Thomas, Drake London, and A.J. Brown of Philadelphia, all with an ADP inside the top 20. I got to tell you, Ladd McConkey to me is probably just as high, if not higher, than all of these guys. This guy was on fire at the end of last season, has become the favorite target, I think, of Justin Herbert. Then you have T. Higgins and you have Tyreek Hill. So, let's start with McConkey here for a minute. Am I right about that, George? For me in fantasy, it's not about the sexiest players, it's about who's going to do the most. And look at those numbers, George. Those are the numbers of Malik Neighbors. Ladd McConkey's being taken a lot later with a better quarterback. What am I missing?
Well, what you're missing, and I agree with you. I have no problem with McConkey. But if I'm going to play the negative Ned here, what you're missing is that a team that wants to run the ball. All right, they want to run the ball a lot. That's what they do. They want to keep the games close, and they have a defense where they can do that. So that's what you're missing. They're not going to have maybe not the opportunities there. That being said, like I said, I always throw touchdowns down because those are finicky here. Chargers were very similar as far as player what they have as the Giants, right? There's really no secondary wide receiver. We'll see what Trey Harris can become. All right, the second round pick, who knows? Maybe good, maybe not. Tight end Will Dissly, Theo Johnson. The running back, we already talked about Najee Harris. Maybe he plays, maybe he doesn't. Then you got Hampton, who I do kind of like, the youngster. We'll see what he can do here. So again, very similar to the Giants here, with the exception, I said they're a better overall team. They got the better quarterback there. So and we saw that Justin Herbert and McConkey had that connection, which is so important last year. He's the unsexy guy here because you're going to Collins, London, Brown. They're probably going to go ahead of McConkey, but the argument is going to be, should they? You can make an argument after those five guys we mentioned earlier that McConkey is next because there could be upside here. There's more juice to squeeze from this orange than what we saw last year. He should get better in year two.
In terms of targets, 158 for the wide receiver on the Atlanta Falcons and Drake London, and he came into his own last year. He caught over 99, I believe, was 100 footballs last year. That's a lot for a guy playing on the Falcons, 1,200 yards and 9 touchdowns. George, some of that with Kirk Cousins. So that's kind of the discussion here. With Michael Penix Jr., I feel like there's an opportunity for London to be wide open down the sideline. Penix hits him for a 50-yard touchdown, but I don't know, man. Like, I could see some games where the stat line, George, is 3 catches, 71 yards, and a touchdown. Like, I just don't know how many connections in particular. And, like, you see that target number and you see that reception number. I don't know that that's going to be the same. I could actually see that going down a little bit.
I think that's fair as well. And you were something important. He did play with Kirk Cousins for a good part of last year until Cousins, finally flamed out. Wasn't very good. Whether it was the Achilles or not, I don't care. He wasn't very good last year. Can London keep up the pace he had with Michael Penix? What do you believe in Michael Penix? Do you believe in Penix? Do you think he's going to be that guy? He's going to be the next true franchise quarterback. If you do, then London should be very good here. Remember, they also have Bijan Robinson, a franchise running back who's going to be the bell cow there. Right? He's going to be the guy, especially when you get close to the end zone. London is sort of Michael Irvin to Bijan Robinson's Emmitt Smith here. The offense is going to filter through Robinson, and then we'll get to Drake London here. I like London, I do, but I'm not expecting major numbers here, not in this offense.
Now let's get to Tyreek Hill, George. Where are you here with Tyreek Hill? Because, certainly the numbers did go down, but this is more of an indictment on everything that's gone on with him, George, over the last year. Like a lot of off-the-field stuff again. Left the locker room last year saying essentially that he was done playing Dolphins and then walked that all back. And Dolphins are saying all the right things here. I mean, I got to tell you, George, there may not be a team this offseason that's being projected for a bigger drop-off going into this year than the Miami Dolphins, with a lot of the same personnel here. What do you make of that?
Listen, a lot of us are starting to think that McDaniels going to be the first coach fired, too. So there's a lot going on in Miami. What I can say about Tyreek Hill is, what's that saying? Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice. Or fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. I'm not buying it this year. Not doing it. Don't trust Tua to stay healthy anyway. Tyreek Hill, listen, if he falls deeper in my draft, of course. But I'm not drafting him in the first couple of rounds. Let him be someone else's problem.
And as they say, fool me 3 times, you take a break.
Online casino expansion in the U.S. is extremely slow, a lot slower than I think we all would have thought, 5 years ago as sports betting took off. But you're going to start to see, I think, next year, a few more states kind of trickle into this. On top of Maine, you had Illinois kind of talk about it. Governor J.B. Pritzker pitched it as an idea to help cut down the budget deficit. Of course, we've got a weird tax fallout there.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
Obviously, he didn't do great in the last 2 majors, and we're going home here. We're going to Northern Ireland, Royal Portage. This is Rory's the reason why we're going here. Got off to a rough start, throwing his tee shot out of bounds back in 2019. I think he'll be ready. Not yet ready to call him the winner. I still have a couple of days before I do that, but it is a home game for him. And as you saw, based on this weekend, he is playing well.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
His run in Salt Lake is over, but obviously the intimidation of a guy that's been around that long in Gundy and in this guy, if you look at their cases, they're very similar. It's been going on forever, right? And it's time for a change, I think, in Stillwater and in Salt Lake. I got to be honest with you. And believe me, if they lose again, they're going to get rid of him.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
No superstar wants to go to Portland there, so you go, oh, well, Dame actually wants to be back here, and this is going to hurt us. It sort of brings back those vibes where Kobe Bryant was in L.A. Great basketball player, horrendous basketball team, but maybe he could sell a couple extra seats and be a star in the building. That's Dame. And also from a perspective of what Dame wants, Dame just doesn't care about championships, and that's okay. Like, he makes a lot of money. He can do that and continue to lose in Portland. Can have it both ways, I guess.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to Fantasy Sports Today here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish along with George Kurtz. We've reached the point in fantasy where it's like, all right, tier 3 wide receivers, George, the real decisions are made. The league-winning decisions are starting to be made. So let's take a look at some of them. Got to tell you, I'm a little surprised to see Jackson Smith and Jigba this low here at ADP 30, but I guess it has more to do with the quarterback situation than it does with JSN, although why aren't we saying that with Drake London and we are with JSN? I'm not really sure. You tell me. There's Garrett Wilson at 32. Clearly, Rashee Rice's ADP, when we snap that, is going to be a lot lower over the next month or so. That's not Sam's fault at all. I mean, it's just the truth is where he is to this point, but that's going to be a lot lower if you're suspended for several games. That's for sure. Terry McLaurin at 35. He'll move up if he signs. And then we can start with Devontae Adams here, George. I think a lot of people would be shocked to see with everything that happened with the Jets last year. He ended up with 141 targets. And by the way, like I keep saying this, I know he's on the Rams and certainly he's got his competition with Puka Nacua there. And those numbers are like pedestrian in terms of what Adams used to do. But all you need to do is look at like the last 5-6 games of the season. Those are all those stats, George. So I guess the question is that can he not bounce back is not the word. Can he get better quarterback play with Matthew Stafford for a full 16-game season? Because if so, that 1,000 yards, George, is going to be 1,200. And you're right about touchdowns. You don't know, but those 8 touchdowns, it could end up being 10. And if that's the case, he's at the top of this list, not at the bottom.
Yeah, I'd be a little wary here. Once again, he's getting another year older, going to a different offense again with Matthew Stafford. And we know Nacua comes first. All right. And Stafford knows Nacua. Right, we never know what the chemistry is going to be like between these two. That's the bad news. The good news is, once again, he's not going to see the number one cornerback anymore. Right, he's not the number one focus of the defense. That's Nacua, so that should work out for him. Assuming him and Stafford get that chemistry going, I think this is the floor of what you're going to see. As far as 1,063, which is not in a 17-game season, that's not very much. With 60 yards a game, all right, it's not very much at all. You're not asking for all that much. But like I said, for what he's being drafted, I would take those exact numbers, by the way. I would probably expect a little bit more, maybe 10% more, but I'll take those numbers. 90 catches, 1,100 yards, and whatever, have between 6 and 10 touchdowns. I'll sign that up. Sign me up for that right now for where I'm drafting him. He's my wide receiver 2. Yeah, he's probably not your wide receiver 1. You talk to the ADP tells you it's the 12-team league. It's the end of round 3, which sounds about right. So I have no problem with Devontae Adams. I'm a little wary here, but there is some upside here. So he's a Hall of Fame wide receiver. He's great on a good team, a team that I think is going to win that division.
So I saw some of the news on Rashee Rice come down earlier in the week that finally, like, there is some legal resolution to this. I also saw some indication that it could end up being more than a 2-game suspension because there were some other things involved, weapons or something like that. I'm not really sure exactly, and I'm not the legal person here at SportsGrid. But do you feel like this ADP is fair? Because for me, George, a 2-game suspension for Rashee Rice, if that is the case, and we don't know, okay? So I want to just make it clear on that. But a 2-game suspension, doesn't that mean he's nowhere near this ADP right now, right? How can you possibly, like, every other guy is playing a full complement of games and he's not?
Yeah, we have to remember ADPs take apart the drafts that have already happened. And originally, Rice's court case was not supposed to happen until January, February, after the season. So we weren't worried about a suspension. All right, so that's why his ADP is so low, round 3. He's not going round 3 anymore. You're at least doubling that to round 6. All right, and I'm not touching because we don't know. You mentioned the best case scenario is 2. It could easily be 4, 6, as you mentioned. I'm not the legal guy at SportsGrid either, as far as the expert there. But he's going to get minimum 2. I expect 4. Coming back off the injury as well. That was a major injury he suffered last year when his Pat Mahomes took him out, his own guy. So, no, like I keep saying on the show, let it be someone else's problem. If the value is there in round 8, 10, sure, I'll take a shot at him. In a keeper league, dynasty league, that's a little different. I might take a shot at him there, but in a regular redraft league, no. Keep saying this over and over again. You can't keep having guys like this and then draft an injury-prone player or 2. It's too much. You're not going to be able to survive this. You're not going to get that lucky where everything works out for you.
Yeah, the other part of the conversation that, look, it just needs to be said. I know there are a lot of very intelligent people that are watching and drafting in fantasy football, but most leagues, as we've said many times here on this show before, and I've been doing this a long time, 13 weeks during the regular season of fantasy football. If you're losing a player for more than 2 weeks in any fantasy league, and you know this, George is 100% right. That player cannot be taken within the first 50 picks of a fantasy football draft. I mean, that basically means that you're going to be a potentially 1-3 or 0-2, and now you got your guy back when 15% of your season is already gone. It just can't happen. All right, so tier 4 wide receivers. These are a couple of players here, George, who certainly took steps back last year. And this is kind of like, do you believe they keep going back, or is there some upside? Marvin Harrison Jr., do you remember where he was taken in fantasy drafts last year, George? This was wasn't he first round pick or second round pick in fantasy last year? His ADP is 39, followed by Mike Evans. Yes, that same Mike Evans at 41. DJ Moore, 45. DK Metcalf goes to 49. Cortland Sutton goes to 50. Boy, this is a lot of yuck for me here, George. I got to be honest with you. I may be more tempted to take Mike Evans in the spot than any of these other guys. I mean, Metcalf goes to Pittsburgh. Yuck. Harrison, I mean, I know he's got the pedigree. I don't care, man. He did not look right at all last year. DJ Moore in Chicago with that situation there. I mean, I know that they're much higher on Caleb Williams this year, but I'm not positive about that. Maybe I like Sutton a little bit more than most because I did think Knicks took some nice steps here, but dangerous tier here for me.
It is a dangerous tier. All right, there are a lot of awards here, but you already said the guy. I'll take Mike Evans. He catches touchdowns, and we know Metcalf. We know Mayfield looks for him. All right, so I'll take Evans all day long. Yes, he gets hurt. All right, that's going. He's not going to play 17 games. He'll miss a couple. He'll always be on the injury report with an ankle or a hamstring injury, something like that. But give me, I'll take all of the Mike Evans. No issue there with him. But you're right. The other guys have issues, and pretty much what you brought up there. Harrison. The pedigree is there. The talent is there. Him and Murray didn't mesh. It's what I say about the chemistry between the quarterback and the wide receiver. It didn't mesh last year. Hopefully it is better because, let's face it, for a rookie wide receiver, 62, 885, and 8, that's not terrible. It's just not what we were expecting. His ADP was in the second round last year. All right, so we were expecting, touchdowns are fine, but we were expecting, 20 more catches, 200 more yards, and we didn't get that. So we need that this year. And some people do expect the Cardinals to take a step up. Cortland Sutton, you mentioned it's what you think about Bo Nix, but this is another team, sort of like the Chargers. That defense is really good, maybe number one in the league. They are not going to open up and have Bo Nix throwing the ball up and down the field 40 times a game. It's not happening, even Sean Payton's offense here. So you need to keep that. I don't know how much upside there is with Sutton. And that's not what I'm worried about here. What you said about DJ Moore is true. I think they'll be better. I think Ben Johnson will do a good job. That offensive line can't be any worse than it was last year. It was horrific. That was a jailbreak from the word go. So I think he'll be better. But once again, I'm not seeing, oh, wow, league winner for you. I don't see that here. I don't know how much upside you're expecting with DJ Moore.
Next tier of wide receivers, we'll touch on this now and continue after the break. A lot of big boomer bust here, George. Devonta Smith of Philly, boomer bust. Jameson Williams, boomer bust. You got a rookie in McMillan, boomer bust. Worthy, I'd put in that category too. I think maybe the most consistent one would be Zay Flowers of Baltimore. To me, that's a little intriguing. Not sure why he's going this low, George. To me, what am I missing here with Flowers? I mean, I guess a lot of the other guys are the hot young names, and Flowers has now been in the league a few years. But am I missing something there? Oh, okay, there it is.
Yeah, injuries a problem there. This is the boomer bust guy. I mean, I'm probably going to roll it with Jameson Williams, who has all sorts of problems on the field, off the field. He's a wacky guy there. But, man, the talent is so there. And in that offense, once again, Monte Brown, Gibbs, they get all the attention. Williams doesn't. A lot of one-on-ones here. I'll be taking some Jameson Williams in my leagues.
All right, we'll hit on rookie Teteroa McMillan coming up next. You're watching Fantasy Sports Today on SportsGrid.
Online casino expansion in the U.S. is extremely slow, a lot slower than I think we all would have thought, 5 years ago as sports betting took off. But you're going to start to see, I think, next year, a few more states kind of trickle into this. On top of Maine, you had Illinois kind of talked about it. Governor J.B. Pritzker pitched it as an idea to help cut down the budget deficit. Of course, we've got a weird tax fallout there.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
Obviously, he didn't do great in the last two majors, and we're going home here. We're going to Northern Ireland, Royal Portage. Rory's the reason why we're going here. Got off to a rough start, throwing his tee shot out of bounds back in 2019. I think he'll be ready. Not yet ready to call him the winner. I still have a couple of days before I do that, but it is a home game for him. And as you saw, based on this weekend, he is playing well.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
His run in Salt Lake is over, but obviously the intimidation of a guy that's been around that long in Gundy and in this guy, if you look at their cases, they're very similar. It's been going on forever, right? And it's time for a change, I think, in Stillwater and in Salt Lake. I got to be honest with you. And believe me, if they lose again, they're going to get rid of him.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
No superstar wants to go to Portland there, so you go, oh, well, Dame actually wants to be back here, and this is going to hurt us. It sort of brings back those vibes where Kobe Bryant was in L.A. Great basketball player, horrendous basketball team, but maybe he could sell a couple extra seats and be a star in the building. That's Dame. And also from a perspective of what Dame wants, Dame just doesn't care about championships, and that's okay. Like, he makes a lot of money. He can do that and continue to lose in Portland. Can have it both ways, I guess.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, so I'm told that I can just use Tetaroa McMillan's name as Tet going into the season. That's what Sam, our producer, says. I just want to get the names right. That's the key to me. All right, Carolina Panthers wide receiver. His ADP, George, is 55. We're not seeing a ton of rookie love at wide receiver in fantasy this year. This kid was out of his mind in the first few games of the college football season last year. Ended up pretty good, but a lot of numbers in bunches, and I think that's what the Panthers are hoping for as well. Seems like there's some potential value here. What do you make of his ADP going into the 2025 season?
I think I am very cautious with rookie wide receivers anyway, especially after I was burned last year with Marvin Harrison, as I did take him in a league or two, and that didn't work out the way I wanted. And then it comes down to, what do you believe as far as Bryce Young is concerned? He was good at the end of the last third of last year. He was good. Looked like he might be that guy. If you believe in him, okay, then Tet could be that number one wide receiver. I'm a Cowboy fan. I did want the Cowboys to draft Tet. Was disappointed when Carolina grabbed him. So I certainly think the talent is there. Just don't know about the team. They should be a run-first team. Not that they have great running backs, but Hubbard, they signed Dowdle, Etienne is there. There's no one really else there besides Tet. Right, you got the veteran in Adam Thielen. Nobody really at tight end unless you think Sanders is going to be something. So this team's a major work in progress. All right, I don't think it's going to be a playoff team or anything like that. It'd be lucky to be a 500 team, which I don't think they can reach. So they should be trailing in a lot of games, but he's going to have to throw the football. I think there's an opportunity there, Craig. I just think when it comes time that he's on the board here in round 6, that I'm going to say, you know what, there's this veteran here. And I know what he's going to do here. And I don't really need upside. I just need consistency. And I'm probably going to, me personally, I'm going to go that direction. Maybe when you're drafting, you want to take the upside guy, the guy who could be a league winner because he could go up for 95 catches, 10 touchdowns, and 1,200 yards. And you want that guy. And I don't blame you for doing it. I just know for me personally, I'm more of a conservative drafter. And I'm probably going to go for the vet that's also going to be there.
All right, let's check in on the Tier 6 ADP. Well said by George. All right, so take some shots here is basically the idea. Chris Godwin back again with Tampa Bay. ADP in the 60s. Same with George Pickens of the Dallas Cowboys this year. Jalen Waddle. I think fair to say Jalen Waddle's career been a little bit of a disappointment. George had a lot of high hopes for him. It's been a little up and down. And then there's Travis Hunter of the Jaguars. Very hot name going into draft season. Calvin Ridley of the Titans. And, I got to tell you, no one really thought we'd say this name, Jerry Jeudy with the Cleveland Browns, who is one player, George, who actually went to Cleveland and succeeded. It's usually like Guy goes to Cleveland. It's like, all right, that's the end of his career. But Judy definitely took a little bit of a next step. People thought he was kind of done in Denver. Turned out to be the opposite in Cleveland.
It did. I'm not drafting him. Cleveland's a mess at quarterback. Flacco, Pickens, Sanders. No. Just say no, boys and girls. Just say no to Cleveland. Once again, when I say something like that, by the way, there comes a time in every draft where everybody has value. If he falls to double-digit rounds, hey, we'll chat. But here his ADP is 72, which in a 12-team means you're at the end of round 6. So I'm not going to do it. Not touching Ridley either. I think Tennessee might be one of the worst teams in football. So no, I'll pass. They are going to be trailing, but I don't know what Cam Ward's going to do. Travis Hunter, I don't know how they're going to use this guy. See if Jacksonville could screw that up. This guy's a terrific talent. I think they just use him on one side of the ball for the most part here, not make him a dual player. So like Deion Sanders, you want to use him at wide receiver? Fine. He's wide receiver for 90% of the game. Maybe he plays cornerback, in the fourth quarter, a 2-minute drill, whatever it might be, but not full time. You can't be great at both doing that here. What you said about Jalen Waddle is true. Disappointment. If I don't trust Hill, I don't trust Waddle, so not doing that. George Pickens, sort of your wild card here. All right, he's not going to see double coverage anymore yet. He's not the guy. That's CeeDee Lamb here. So we're going to like Pickens. Dallas should be trailing. Can him and Dak get on the same page here? And he's in a contract year. He wants those big bucks next year. He wants that $35 million contract. Got to put up numbers this year. Godwin should be fine, if not more than fine, assuming he can come back from that injury, which is pretty gross last year. I think in that game versus Atlanta, I want to say. That was a pretty gross injury. Assuming he comes back, he was having a fantastic season last year. So I'm not forgetting about Chris Godwin either.
Let's go real quick to tier 7s, wide receivers, George. Some players with upside, some maybe that are not touchable. I would probably put Chris Olave in that category. Boy, Saints offense looks disastrous. Juwan Jennings, George, holding out, wants a new deal. Jordan Addison in that potential suspension category. Rome Odunze. Debo Samuel's now with Washington, and Jacoby Myers is your not sexy name on the list, but is going to outperform probably everybody that we're listing there.
Yeah, you joke, but you may not be wrong. All right, that's a joke with a lot of truth in it there. Myers, that unsexy guy that puts up numbers every damn season, right? And you're like, oh, look at this guy. So, yeah, and he's got a better quarterback situation this year, right, with Geno Smith. No matter what you think about Geno, he's better than what they had. So, yeah, Jacoby Myers, sure. Debo Samuel, we'll see. The McLaurin thing makes that a little muddy as well here. He gets more reps now with Daniels here, so that's a good thing. Odunze, we already talked about we don't trust DJ Moore in that offense. Odunze sort of the same thing. I'm probably going to pass. Addison, you already said it. He's going to get suspended. 2, 4, 6, whatever it might be. I don't think his suspension is going to be as bad as Rice's. It could be even, could both be 2 games. But I don't think like Addison gets 4 and Rice only gets 2. If anything, it'll be the reverse. What you said about Jennings is true. He wants more money. Hey, I'm now a major point of the offense. You got rid of Debo. I'm going to be used more. I want a higher contract. That's really what it comes down to there. We'll see if that works out with San Fran. I do like Jennings, by the way, if they get this all worked out. I think he's a little sneaky little play there. Brandon Ayuk probably not going to start the season with the team. Right. Remember, he's got the injury. I think maybe end of September for him.
Yeah, to me, Myers is like the easiest. I'll just wait and pick up my 7, 8 touchdowns and 900 yards, something along those lines. And yeah, it can't be any worse, the quarterbacking that it's been the last few years for the Raiders. All right, we'll take a quick time out here on Fantasy Sports Today. When we come back next, we'll wrap up the first hour of the show as we keep going down the list at wide receiver. You can also download the SportsGrid app just by taking out your phone and scan this QR code. It'll tell you all about our live programming 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It is the SportsGrid app available for both iOS and Android. More Fantasy Sports Today coming your way right after this quick break. Craig and George will be right back.
Online casino expansion in the U.S. is extremely slow, a lot slower than I think we all would have thought, 5 years ago as sports betting took off. But you're going to start to see, I think, next year a few more states kind of trickle into this. On top of Maine, you had Illinois kind of talk about it. Governor J.B. Pritzker pitched it as an idea to help cut down the budget deficit. Of course, we've got a weird tax fallout there.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
Obviously, he didn't do great in the last two majors, and we're going home here. We're going to Northern Ireland, Royal Portage. This is Rory's the reason why we're going here. Got off to a rough start, throwing his tee shot out of bounds back in 2019. I think he'll be ready. Not yet ready to call him the winner. I still have a couple of days before I do that, but it is a home game for him. And as you saw, based on this weekend, he is playing well.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
His run in Salt Lake is over, but obviously the intimidation of a guy that's been around that long in Gundy and in this guy, if you look at their cases, they're very similar. It's been going on forever, right? And it's time for a change, I think, in Stillwater and in Salt Lake. I got to be honest with you. And believe me, if they lose again, they're going to get rid of him.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
No superstar wants to go to Portland there, so you go, oh, well, Dame actually wants to be back here, and this is going to hurt us. It sort of brings back those vibes where Kobe Bryant was in L.A. Great basketball player, horrendous basketball team, but maybe he could sell a couple extra seats and be a star in the building. That's Dame. And also from a perspective of what Dame wants, Dame just doesn't care about championships, and that's okay. Like, he makes a lot of money. He can do that and continue to lose in Portland. Can have it both ways, I guess.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to Fantasy Sports today here on SportsGrid. Let's go through Tier 8's wide receivers in fantasy football as we get ready to wrap up this hour of the show. Look, at this point, no one is going to seem like a great pick. It's a matter of just trying to find a diamond in the rough, George. You got any here? Khalil Shakir inside the top 100. Jaden Reed, Ricky Pearsall. 49ers are going to give him more of a shot. Stephon Diggs is in New England this year. How about that? Cooper Kupp. You probably could give me ADP 150. I would not take Cooper Kupp. Honestly, George, I think it's over for Cooper Kupp. No offense to him. Matthew Golden, Josh Downs. Boy, nothing looks great here to me. Does anything look like a wide receiver 3 to you?
I mean, listen, PPR league, Shakir is interesting. He catches balls. It may not be, once again, not sexy. He's not the prototype guy, but I'm kind of interested in Shakir in PPR leagues. And by the way, I assume most leagues are PPR right now. Who still plays in a standard league? I don't think I played one in a couple of years, at least in a standard league there. All these other guys are major chances here. Pearsall's on the pup list, which is not good for a guy. I think the entire 49ers roster's on the pup list, right? Brandon Ayuk, Pearsall. So they're going to have all sorts of issues in camp. I don't think Pearsall will be on that list for long here. Read all the Green Bay wide receivers. Who's going to be that guy? I mean, good luck. So Christian Watson in here too. Matthew Golden's the rookie, so I guess he's the favorite right now. Stephon Diggs in his little pink bag. We'll see. Boy, the Patriots need him to be that guy or be close to that guy, and they could take that next step. Cooper Kupp's the name we all know, but as you said, I don't know. I'm going to have a tough time here. But listen, in a 10-team league, we're talking around 11 here, and in a 12-team teams around 9. We're getting to the point where everyone has value. All right, just what do you feel? What's your gut feel on a guy? How much risk do you want to take here? How much risk have you already taken during your draft? So I can see people taking Kupp and hoping, that he'll have some chemistry with Sam Darnold and it works out here. Do I think it does? Sure. A couple games, yeah. Is he going to miss a couple of games? Sure. And then what's going to happen for the other 10 games? That's what he's sort of worried about here. So I don't feel great about it. But at this point in the draft, yeah, it may be that dartboard throw and hoping you hit it.
Now, there's a lot of dart throwing in the second round from the NFL draft, George. There's a very interesting dynamic with very few players signed in the second round looking for guaranteed money. And so some players are still out there unsigned. Luther Burden of the Bears being one of those, and also Trey Harris of the Chargers. We mentioned Judkins. At this point, he's really in a different category, I think, than many others. But overall, do you have concerns with some of these players that are not signed? I guess, George, the question would be, where are they going to go? There's nowhere to go. I kind of feel like they have to get signed eventually. But what I don't want to hear is in 3 weeks they're still not signed. Then you're talking about missing preseason and things like that.
I think for the most part, I'm going to say they're 32 second-round picks. I think you will find out by August 1st, 30 of them signed. All right, so I'm not really all that worried about it. These guys will come in. Craig, you already said it. They're arguing over guarantee. Everybody knows how much they're getting paid. All right, that's how the NFL draft works nowadays. It's not money they're arguing about. They're arguing about guaranteed money. Maybe specifically about if they get released, can they double dip? That sort of thing here. So it'll all get figured out. You're starting to see it get figured out now. And once somebody gets signed, it's a domino effect here. With the exception of the guy we keep talking about, Judkins, he has different problems. So that could be an issue there. And I would avoid him. I'm not going to deal with it. Not in redraft league. Can't say this enough. Dynasty leagues and keeper leagues are a little different here. Maybe you do want to take a chance here that eventually he becomes that player and things get worked out. So I'm not really worried about the second round guys. All right. It's not affecting if I had him in round 7, they're still in round 7, maybe round 8 now. I guess it could come down to, oh, well, you know what? He's still unsigned. Let's go with this guy. Go with the other guy just to be sure
Right.
here. But I think they all signed. It's not something that's in the top of my mind that I should be worried about.
Travion Henderson, one of those bigger names also from the New England Patriots, still out there, hasn't signed a contract. R.J. Harvey of the Denver Broncos, another name too, of course, a wide open running back situation in Denver as well. We'll see if this over the next ends up happening. For now, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, George, the one guy who did sign early and ruined it for everybody else was Jaden Higgins of the Houston Texans. Higgins is signed. He signed a fully guaranteed contract of over $11 million. And because he did that, George, and he was the first one, this is why no one else is signed, because everyone thinks they should get guaranteed money too.
Right, it's the way it works, right? I think the first 2 guys got guaranteed, if I remember correctly, and then everybody else goes, "Yeah, I want guaranteed." And now I think I want to say somebody in the top 10 signed for 88% guaranteed. So that's how it's going to work. They're trying to figure out 89, 9. It's funny how the NFL works with these things. So like I said, they'll work it out. These guys are not going to hold out all of training camp.
All right, we'll be back with the second hour of FST right after this.
Online casino expansion in the U.S. is extremely slow, a lot slower than I think we all would have thought, 5 years ago as sports betting took off. But you're going to start to see, I think, next year, a few more states kind of trickle into this. On top of Maine, you had Illinois kind of talk about it. Governor J.B. Pritzker pitched it as an idea to help cut down the budget deficit. Of course, we've got a weird tax fallout there.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
Obviously, he didn't do great in the last 2 majors, and we're going home here. We're going to Northern Ireland, Royal Portage. Rory's the reason why we're going here. Got off to a rough start, throwing his tee shot out of bounds back in 2019. I think he'll be ready. Not yet ready to call him the winner. I still have a couple of days before I do that, but it is a home game for him. And as you saw, based on this weekend, he is playing well.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
His run in Salt Lake is over, but obviously the intimidation of a guy that's been around that long in Gundy and in this guy, if you look at their cases, they're very similar. It's been going on forever, right? And it's time for a change, I think, in Stillwater and in Salt Lake. I got to be honest with you. And believe me, if they lose again, they're going to get rid of him.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
No superstar wants to go to Portland there, so you go, oh, well, Dame actually wants to be back here, and this is going to hurt us. It sort of brings back those vibes where Kobe Bryant was in L.A. Great basketball player, horrendous basketball team, but maybe he could sell a couple extra seats and be a star in the building. That's Dame. And also from a perspective of what Dame wants, Dame just doesn't care about championships, and that's okay. Like, he makes a lot of money. He can do that and continue to lose in Portland. Can have it both ways, I guess.
The Early Line, only on Sports.